I know how this fandom reacts to the slightest bit of criticism, so consider me a spoon because I'm stirring the pot. In all seriousness, I'm not trying to piss anyone off with this review, but I can't lie, I didn't care for this film very much at all. And that's genuinely a shame because I was really looking forward to it. Leading up to the release, I rewatched 28 Days Later and watched 28 Weeks Later for the first time. While I'm not a die-hard fan of this series or anything, I did think that they were both interesting and went against the grain of your average zombie movie. Yeah, I said zombie, not infected, zombie. And guess what? So does this movie. And I had a pretty good laugh about that in the theater. The trailers for this movie look great with some incredible scenery, really intense moments, and the sound of boots being read that only makes your heart race faster. I love Alex Garland's work. Ex Machina and Civil War were incredible. Warfare is one of my favorite movies of this year. And he wrote Dredd, which is one of the most criminally underrated comic book movies of all time. Seeing him pair up with Danny Boyle again after all this time, it felt like everything was set in place where it needed to be. So going in, I was primed. Emphasis on prime because I saw this in the premium format. Prime at AMC or whatever it's called. And honestly, I don't really know what I was supposed to be getting from that because it didn't seem like all that different of an experience. Maybe the sound was just slightly a bit louder, but I didn't think it was worth like an extra tacked on additional charge or whatever they did to up my ticket price. I had the privilege of seeing this with Adam from Adam Does Movies here on YouTube, and our screening was at 11 p.m., meaning the movie wrapped up at around 1:20 a.m. when you factor in previews on a Thursday. Was that a stupid decision? Could have been worse. But when Adam asked, he came to me with tears in his eyes. He said, "Sir," he calls me sir, "Sir, please come see this movie with me. It's at 11 p.m. at night, and I'm afraid to go alone. And it's dark out, and I'm afraid of the dark."
Right.
But Adam also has a review on his channel, which I will have linked below in the description, so be sure to check that out if you wouldn't mind. So anyway, to address the film, the best thing this film has going for it is Alfie Williams as Spike. I know he's named Spike because they say his name every 45 seconds. I would say you can make a drinking game out of it, but I wouldn't want to encourage anyone to die from alcohol poisoning. But this kid can act, and he's doing a pretty good job with what he's given. Aaron Taylor Johnson is doing alright, but he's only featured in like the main third of the movie mostly, and I also just cannot tell what kind of accent he's supposed to be doing. Now, maybe I'm just some ignorant American, but it sounded like whatever Scottish brogue he was trying to do also had his typical English dialect slipping in there. Again, feel free to correct me because I'm just not from that region, so I don't know, but to me it sounded kind of weird. Jodie Comer is convincing in her role, but as a mentally deteriorating woman, they don't really give her a whole lot of narrative purpose aside from just being the person that Spike is escorting across these infected lands. Being that this is supposed to be a mother and son dynamic, I didn't feel like they really fleshed out these characters in a way that earned the more emotional moments between them in the film, and overall, it just kind of left me feeling nothing. Just so much of this movie is meandering about and not really doing a whole lot that was all that engaging in my opinion. Ralph Fiennes I glimpsed in the trailer and was the main catalyst for why I wanted to see this movie, and unfortunately, as I feared, he's really only in the third act of the movie, and even then, while he's still performing well, doesn't have a whole lot of narrative purpose. So basically the concept here is the boy is being taught by his dad how to be a man, how to survive, and how to fight these zombies. And then after learning about some mysterious doctor who lives far, far away, he's going to single-handedly trek across these lands with his mother and hope that he's able to find said doctor and save her from her illness. It's funny to me because as I rewatched 28 Days Later recently, I realized how much of that film was inspirational for The Last of Us game, and now watching this film, it's clear that for the making of 28 Years Later, they were heavily inspired by The Last of Us, much in the same way that Friday the 13th ripped off Halloween back in the day, and then Halloween 2 was echoing a lot of what made Friday the 13th so popular. Drawing inspiration from something that's inspired by you. That's weird. So they shot this entire film on iPhones, and while that sounds super ambitious and like it could revolutionize cinema moving forward, it really doesn't. Several scenes are just not completely in focus, or they look like they were zoomed in and not auto-adjusted, or scenes are just straight up blurry, and I couldn't tell you why. They're probably going to pass that off as a stylistic choice. It just looks like bad cinematography. The editing is also bizarre because as there's several moments where they show the impact of hits like arrows hitting zombies, for whatever reason they will freeze frame and shift the angle of the hit just to showcase the impact, and they do it so frequently that it just becomes annoying, and it's not stylistic enough to justify overusing it that much. I kid you not, toward the beginning of the movie, they do that like 5 or 6 times in a row, and at that point, I just leaned over to Adam and I said, they might as well just be using Mortal Kombat X-ray hits. It was also really stupid to me how they were shooting arrows through skulls like they were pumpkins. For anyone who doesn't know, the human skull is the hardest bone in the body, and so if an arrow hits it, it's going to bound off unless it hits inside the eye socket. But even still, if it were to hit a person in the eye, it wouldn't shoot out the back of the head unless it was made of like adamantium or something. One last thing, every single muzzle flash in this movie does not have smoke. Really annoyed me. Cannot wait for Corridor Crew to rip that a new one. The other thing too is I feel like the infected just get forgotten about for a lot of the movie, or at least at various points throughout the film, because they certainly show up, but it never felt like they were there because it was baked into the concept of the film. They were just kind of introduced as a random obstacle. Like, that's something I didn't really care for with The Last of Us Part 2 or Season 2 of the HBO show, was how so much of it was focused on the human drama that the infected just kind of take a back seat and aren't a huge priority in terms of the overall concept of this story. The Last of Us Part 1 and Season 1 of the show really baked in clickers and runners and bloaters into what they were doing narratively, and the same can be said for the first two 28 later films. When we get to the point of exploring the world without giving much use to the zombies outside of occasionally showing up to make a situation tense, it loses its unique impact. Like, if this is primarily a drama featuring a character who's suffering from an illness that isn't the rage virus, then I feel like that could be the plot of any generic survival movie, and the zombies could be replaced with bandits or feral animals or literally anything else. And I guess that could just be a preference thing of how I go into a zombie film. I want that concept to be utilized properly, otherwise why are we doing this? And sure, there's plenty of memorable moments in the film with the infected, and now how they introduced alphas and how they perform, shall we say, fatalities, but it seems really weird to introduce a bunch of stuff like this and just completely ignore all the lingering questions from 28 weeks later. Like, seriously, it seems as though Alex Garland and Danny Boyle were just straight up dismissing that film from continuity overall. And I get they didn't direct or write it, but they were executive producers on it, if I'm not mistaken. And considering how that ended on quite a bit of a cliffhanger, and we've been waiting all this time for it to be resolved, for them to just completely ignore it 100% felt really weird. Whatever happened to the infected that seemed to be taking over Paris at the end of the movie? Don't know. Did that kid that was immune ever infect anyone else, or did they derive a cure from him? Couldn't tell you. If the infected originally starved out 28 weeks from the initial outbreak, how is it that they've been surviving in the wilderness for the past 28 years? Deer. Lots of friggin' deer. The pacing of this film is also insanely slow. I was checking my watch I don't know how many times, and at a certain point, I remember like halfway or 2/3 of the way through the movie, I just had the thought of, alright, I'm bored. And I haven't felt that way sitting in a theater since, well, I guess I saw The Brutalist earlier this year in January, didn't I? For some people, that slow burn aspect might work, and for the most part, I am not a stranger to that. One of my favorite slow burns out there is Sicario, that definitely takes its time to plot along with what it's doing, and it uses it well, but I felt like so much of this movie was not really doing a whole lot and just kind of meandering around and was just overall very uninteresting. And I understand that might be a bit of a divisive take, but considering I wasn't a fan of the narrative direction that this was going, and I feel like a lot of people are saying that right now too, while still there are plenty that are enjoying it, I just don't think this worked for me. Lastly, I will say this has one of the most bizarre resolutions to any film that I have ever seen. The words tracksuit mafia, punk metal, Teletubby Power Rangers fight might not mean anything to you now, but you'll get there. Overall, I wanted to love this film, but by the end of it, Adam and I were both just exhausted from the experience and vehemently disappointed. And so for a score out of 10, I'm going to give this one a 3. So 28 years later, were you satisfied or were you disappointed? I would love to hear what you have to say down in the comments. Also, let me know if you're excited for the next 2 films, because yes, this is kicking off a new trilogy. Nia DaCosta is directing the second one, which I believe is already shot and finished, or at least they're working on it right now, and it's set to release in January 2026, and I can't remember specifically when the third one is going to come out, but Danny Boyle is at least directing that one. I'm assuming Alex Garland is also writing it. I don't know if Alex Garland is writing the second one. He might. I could look this up, but I'm just not going to. But let me know your enjoyment level of this one and your excitement for the next films. I would also love to hear, what other films are you looking forward to this year? We got a huge month in July coming up with Superman, Fantastic Four, Jurassic World, and Smurfs. Can't forget about the Smurfs. Either way, if you're going to comment something down below and it's going to be a bit of a hot take, or if you're just going to disagree with someone overall, don't be a jerk about it. These are just movies after all, not the most important thing in the world. But if you want more stuff from me that isn't YouTube exclusive, I have 4 links in the description that'll take you to 4 social media platforms where I post tons of reviews that don't always make it onto this channel. And the ones that do make it onto this channel, I always post on those platforms long before I edit together a video. And like I said before, be sure to check out Adam's review. That'll be linked in the description as well. Be sure to like this video if you like this review, subscribe if you want more videos like this, and hit the bell so you know when I'm uploading. And until next time, guys, God be with you, and take care.